Welcome back to the Superheroes Everyday Podcast. I'm Danny Horn, and I am still here with Ryan Steens of the Signal Watch Podcast. Hello, Ryan.
Hi.
He's still here. If you need proof of life, that was it. This is Act 3 of the 2023 Phase 5 fiasco, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. We are now in Kang's palace, which is also his time ship, kind of, but it's huge. It's very big. And some faceless stormtroopers bring Janet into throne room, question mark, whatever this is, so that they can have some more unearned exposition from Kang about what he's trying to do. So this is an actual episode of Tell Don't Show Theater, where he is just gonna explain all of his motivation and kind of where he comes from. He's gonna explain some stuff, but it doesn't, there's this huge piece that's missing. So what he says is he's the only person who can see how broken the multiverse is. And there are his variants throughout the multiverse playing with time like children. And it shows, like from Loki, it shows kind of the swirl of timelines and this kind of like Milky Way galaxy around them. But they're all kind of merging. And he says, there are going to be endless incursions. I saw the multiverse and it was dying, all because of them. So I took control. And she says, and now you'll destroy any universe in your way. That's what monsters do. That's what conquerors do. They burn the broken world and they make a new one. And she points out that he is going to murder trillions of people. And he says, I wish that mattered, Janet. So this is not a grown-up philosophy for a character who's supposed to be smart and crafty, because we don't know what the thing is that he's actually trying to build or why he wants to build it, because he is totally on his own. So this is kind of like Eternals, where Arishem wanted to kill billions of existing people to make more billions of hypothetical people and then kill them to help even more hypothetical people. Like, that's incoherent as a concept, because either the people matter or they don't. And so there's this question of like, who is Kang trying to help? Why does he see it as a problem that the multiverse dies if he doesn't care about the people who live in it? Like, which people is he prioritizing? He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have a nationality or a species. Actual emperors and conquerors and authoritarians, they have a nationality, a group of people that they are leading, and a philosophy, which basically boils down to like, I want power and wealth, and I want my children to have power and wealth for my family line to continue and the people that I like and identify with. But Kang is alone. He doesn't like anybody or care about anybody. So why does he care what happens to the multiverse?
This is it's a really good point. Thanos, the thing that was kind of creepy about him was, and much like Magneto,
Yeah.
you could always kind of get what they were getting. I mean, that's been one of the things people have talked about with Marvel villains over the years is, you get where Killmonger's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Chadwick Boseman said, I would in real life be on his side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he is not wrong about anything he says, and that's the brilliance of the Black Panther movie.
Yeah, and Magneto, it's the Martin Luther King Jr. versus Malcolm X thing of like, they have the same goal that we agree with, but very different methods for getting there.
And when Kang was rattling off and said that's what conquerors is, like, that's not what conquerors do. Why would you think that's the definition of a conqueror? That's not at all. Conquering is coming in with your people and taking over another people. That's conquering, not just murdering everybody.
Right.
It's subjugating other people.
Yeah.
So that you can have their resources.
Right.
And enslave them.
Because there's a group of people who you are actually trying to help, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's your people, it's your family,
Right.
your race, your nationality.
And I don't know what it means for the multiverse to die. They never say that either. It's like, well, are you saying time's going to wink out of existence? What are you saying that, like, you don't know what's on the other side of that? Right. As an audience member, it's utterly meaningless. I was like, well, that just sounds to me like an interesting experiment, Mr. Kang.
Let's run this and see what happens.
Yeah, because I don't think time will actually end, because time's a construct. So, which you have already said.
Yes.
So what are we actually doing here? And it's not, and it just gets more fuzzy from here.
Yeah.
Sneak preview, everybody. It just gets fuzzier and fuzzier what the hell anybody is doing for the next 30 minutes.
That's right. Here comes some more faceless stormtroopers. Where do they come from? when we see his big city, this city, his big dark city that he has created, which is just darkness and some lights stretching out into the distance. And at some point it runs into the sky at some kind of horizon, but we don't see it. And what's happening outside is just, I looked at it and I said, oh, it's Attack of the Clones. It's just
that is literally what I said to Jamie.
Oh, is that right? Okay, there you go.
I turned to her and I said, doesn't this look just like Attack of the Clones?
Okay, well then we are, yes, that must be true, actually true. And possibly everybody looks at that, including, I'm sure, so many people making this movie. So, there's all these good, smart VFX people who are working on this film, and all of them fucking know that this is Attack of the Clones. It's Attack of the Clones, but with the broccoli guy is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so he just has this insane, endless, one of these days, somebody's going to make a movie where there's a limited number of henchmen. I don't know what that movie is going to be like, but I would love to see it. And so Cassie's being kind of like stormtroopered around, and she has some excess Pym particles in her hand. And so she makes one of the stormtroopers grow and the other one shrink, and then she puts her suit on. And they probably should have taken all that stuff away from her. But faceless stormtroopers, what are you going to do? So Scott and Hope come too, and then here come these enormous ants with helmets. This is probably the one thing that I actually like about the movie is like, then here come the ants charging over the horizon like the cavalry. And these are the ants from the ant farm who have lived thousands of years in a single day, advancing their science and knowledge, whatever that means. And they've built a city, and they've built a technocratic class 2 civilization. And then Hank says, oh God, I just realized this. Hank says, I know socialism is a charged word, but we could learn a lot from the ants. And now I realize that was Loveness, just desperate to put the word socialism, which he does not understand. That's so annoying. Oh, that makes me so angry. I'm not against socialism, by the way. It's obviously that's not that. It's that Jonathan Loveness does not understand what socialism is or how it works. And he appears to think that it's ants.
One of the things that I thought about that, I'm not accusing Loveness of anything here. I'm going to give him a pass on this one thing. The origin of the ant civilization is exactly the same as that of the comic book that was tucked in with the Atari 2600 game Yar's Revenge.
I'm going to put in one more clip. This is my last clip from Stupid Jeff Loveness about his plans for Hank.
We were going to kill Hank at one point, and I was going to have him be like reanimated, like his consciousness was going to live on through the ants, and he was going to be like like mentally controlling them. I actually really yeah, he was going to be almost like this hive mind of the ants, and like I like that. That didn't go too far.
It's not, obviously that's not a thing that actually ended up in the movie, but it just feels so weird and tone deaf. Like, why would we want to see Hank killed and turned into ants in the quantum realm? Like, the movie is about protecting this family, and losing Hank to a hive mind in the quantum realm, and presumably we're going to leave these ants in the quantum realm because that's what we do, so we're going to leave Hank down there. It turns into a tragedy. And just once again, it's Loveness thinking about what would be cool rather than like, what is this story about, or what works for these characters in their particular journey.
That particular thing really stuck in my craw when I was watching the video as well. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why, other than, it's hard to know what other drafts of the script had what in them. But we know it's an Ant-Man movie, which again are supposed to be action comedies. And this movie has a hard enough time being funny because the stakes are both incredibly high and totally pointless. My feeling was he was going to kill Hank in the crashed ship.
Yeah.
And but his consciousness somehow merged with the ants at this point. So when it comes back, you were going to get a giant Hank made out of ants, which would have been horrific to look at.
Yeah.
And it just made me like want to give this guy such a wedgie when he was talking about it. Like, but the thing is, stuff like that happens all the time in movies of these not well conceived ideas that don't serve the audience, don't serve the story, end up in them because someone decided something was going to be cool.
Yeah. This is why we shouldn't have cool as a concept. It does not serve us well, because you start doing things just to be cool, and it ultimately takes you away from what the movie is actually supposed to be for.
Yeah.
And so now it basically just turns into, this is now the endless battle sequence where it's Kang's folks, all of his little faceless stormtroopers up against everybody else from the movie, Cassie and Gentora and Veb and Flashlight Head guy and maybe the broccoli guy, and who even knows at a certain point. It's just like a lot of stuff in a dark place where a lot of people are running at a lot of other people. And that's basically how this goes.
Why did they imprison those people?
Because they were part of a rebellion.
Why didn't they just kill them? Like they're robots. Like what does Kang have to he's not going to rehabilitate them or re-educate them. He doesn't, they never say that he's going to turn them into the robots. They never say, like there's so many potential things they could have done of like, they're in processing, they're going to become those things.
You know, that hadn't even occurred to me. You are absolutely right. Yeah, that it's just, they are just there so that Cassie can do a thing. She can run downstairs and figure out how to open the force field prison.
Yeah.
And then she gives a speech to the world. So Kang, says, this is bullshit. I'm going to leave. I'm taking my empire with me. Now I have the energy core. And so he's got all these like troops lined up and he's given them a big blue hologram speech. And then all of a sudden, somehow Cassie takes over and does a really long hologram speech to everybody, to the huddled masses everywhere, apparently in the entire place, saying Kang is not invincible. Get the message out. I know it feels like it's too late, but the family I've lost taught me to keep fighting. She hasn't lost any of these people. And we need to look out for the little guy, she says. Come to the tower. Fight back. It's awful. It's so basic. It's just entirely basic. Cassie does not really have that much of a unique personality that we've never seen before.
This is when I said, oh, okay, this is all just supposed to be Cassie's origin story. They're setting her up to go be, a big thing in the Marvel U.
Yeah.
And it just so unearned. And the speech was so clunky and awkward. And again, this is New York in 17 whatever with the British like invading, and they suddenly go, screw you guys, the colonies, we're going back to England. You should watch them all
right.
like getting ready, they're mustering,
get into their ship, yeah,
and you're like, we're gonna attack them now. It's like literally no one would do that. You just go, they're leaving.
All right,
they're leaving. All right,
bye, Felicia. Yeah, so he's saying begin the launch. And he puts his energy core into a thing that holds an energy core, and then stuff lights up, and then more stuff lights up, and then stuff in the city kind of moves, and there's a lot of music, and it becomes like a really big ball with rings. It's all very tremendously exciting. And MODOK has Cassie. MODOK is about to kill Cassie now, and he's doing weird, like Uncanny Valley conversation with her about that. And then it's Jurassic Park. Like they feel the glass of water shake, boom, boom, because there's really big steps coming. And finally, Scott is doing something interesting. It's Ant-Man. He's turned giant. Why he didn't do this a million times before, I don't know. It's like Godzilla or the Power Rangers or whatever, or Voltron. Like you got to wait for the end of the fight for them to do the real weapon that actually hurts people. But he comes and he's like, Kang, we had a deal. You took my daughter. And it's kind of fun. I like this part, actually. Where he's walking through and he's like crushing troopers and he's knocking stuff over. And finally, I can't say like it's a thing I've never seen before, but it's at least a pleasurable thing to look at.
I wish this had happened on our Earth because I didn't know what I was looking at for this sequence. I wanted to like the sequence.
Yeah, I can hear that.
When I said I was going to refer to Gremlins 2, one of the things I enjoy most in a film is when things just spiral into chaos in the finale. This was heading towards that, except, I mean, they're trying to do the crazy Ant-Man things. Now he's gigantic.
Right.
It's like, but I don't know how gigantic because I don't have any perspective as to how big anything I'm looking at is. I don't know what any of that is. It's all just made up fantasy shit. And he's absolutely murdering his own people as he's stomping through there. There's absolutely no way that he's not murdering his own people.
Probably. But with, he's trying to aim as he's walking around. He's trying to just step on the blue-faced stormtroopers. And then there's like cute comedy stuff with the rebels. Chidi gets a nice little thing where like they're getting a bridge code from a dude, and Veb, the kind of slug guy, They shoot him and now he has holes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very excited. I have holes. And he growls and he eats people. I don't have anything to say about those moments. I just want to mention them for the people who actually enjoyed this movie, who I'm sure are sitting there and they're like, yeah, but what about the funny parts? I concede the funny parts.
The I have holes bit was the funniest part of the whole movie.
Yes, it is. It's a little Monsters University joke, and I enjoyed it very much. And just in general, I enjoyed, Scott stomping around and just busting stuff. So this part, like, there's some cool stuff because it's big visual sequences, and he's really big, and there's the big blue electric ball, and he kind of like punches his way through that, and there's a lot of creatures running around.
I got to watch some kooky shit happen. Scott pulled the top off of a building and of an unlikely shape and shove it into the energy sphere. That was fun superhero type stuff.
I think what you and I have been saying though is it would have been more interesting and better for that stuff to happen in a movie where like Scott and Cassie, there's been some kind of conflict between them, and this is a moment when they come together, as opposed to just like they've been entirely together this entire time and nothing has changed, and then she grows big and he's happy with her. But he's been happy with her and he will continue to be happy with her forever.
He just gets to be a proud papa for yet another reason, despite the fact that she's also apparently the smartest woman on earth. So
yes. Yeah, exactly. And then there is the MODOK whole scenario, which we've kind of run through. Cassie has grown really big and she punches MODOK in the face and he's lying there kind of beat up. And now he's sad. And she tells him to stop being a dick. And he says, I don't know if I can. It's too late. And she says, never too late not to be a dick, which appears to be a wise life lesson from Jeff Loveness. I think that might actually be his big, like, he thought it's never too late not to be a dick was going to be like a philosophy moment that people would quote. That's going to be his moment.
That just feels like such a Rick and Morty sort of.
Absolutely.
The other thing I would say about it is the fight between Cassie and MODOK needed to have happened for that him to return in a few minutes to have any impact needed to have happened 20 to 30 minutes earlier in the film.
Yeah, that heel turn happens way too fast. He's basically murdering her and she swats him down to the ground and they have that moment. And then a minute and a half later, he's there and helping.
Yeah. From a story perspective, makes zero sense. I didn't know what was happening when it started.
I tell you what, I love you, Peanut. They have another I love you, Peanut moment where she's really big and he's really big. This is actually cute too, where they have like a little moment where they talk about how they're really hungry when they're both big. It's another cute moment. Janet's still alive. There's wreckage. Janet's still alive and Kang's still alive and he's watching his city fall apart. And Janet says it's over. And Kang says it's never over, which I fear might actually be the case. And then another fucking stormtrooper shows up and takes her someplace else. And so now Kang floats down to the place where all the rebels are and starts burning them with his blue electric death rays, which he's very good at. The rebels all fall back and Kang is kind of following them, casually blowing people up. And then there's Scott and Cassie and Hope just standing in front of him and they put on their suits and it's, there's no way we can win, but I'm going to try anyway. And so they try to punch him and do things. And Cassie tries to get big and he counters all of their moves and Scott gets big. And then Kang does another villain monologue. You think this is new to me? You know how many rebellions I've put down, how many worlds I've conquered, how many Avengers I've killed. And you think you can beat me? I am Kang. You talk to ants. And then Ryan, you ready for some irony?
Boy, howdy.
Here comes some irony. Because here's the ants with their technology. And there's lots of them. Lots and lots and lots of them, including a huge mecha one that's helping. And then Hank walks up and he's all cool. He's got all his ants. And they swarm all over everything. This is actually not unclever. It is obvious. But it is cute. And I do actually think that it's a cute idea that, like, even no matter how powerful Kang individually is going to be in that moment, if he gets swarmed by these giant ants, like, you can't fight all those ants. And then MODOK comes in and tries to shoot. And he says, my name is Darren and I am not a dick. And then he gets killed. And there's a very cute comedy scene about the intentional mutilation and psychological and physical torture of an old acquaintance leading to his gruesome death. And this is a comedy scene about that. We take a moment to enjoy the death of Darren.
This was so weird. I was not freaked out by this scene, but just like, oh no, your timing on this is very strange. Like this is like you need this is where the comedy bit has supposed to have already wrapped up.
Yeah.
And you're just getting through, and everyone's going to take a beat to recognize his heroism. And I understand they want to play it for last one. Like you're also, this movie at this point is a motorcycle wheel just spinning at 100 miles an hour, and y'all just threw a wrench in it so we could have a little laugh.
So we could make fun.
Yeah.
But again, I gotta give him the moment where he says, "At least I died in adventure," which is, and they say, "Yep, yeah, you sure did." It's a funny line.
Yeah, I wouldn't take that from them ever. But it also tells me no one making this movie took narrative with this movie seriously.
Yes. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work. So I am sort of grabbing for like these little bits that I actually enjoyed of funny thing or interesting thing to look at, but it does not change the ultimate emptiness of the movie. And then we're winning. And so the rebels are all cool. They hug everybody and they say good luck. And Janet is doing science somewhere with some CGI pixies, and she creates a magic wormhole that will take them back to wherever they started, because they just do. And everybody's all running in, and then Kang shoots Scott just before he gets in, and he's left behind. And everyone is worried about him. And then he has a big fist fight with Scott, and he does more slow talking and more punching. And you could have seen your daughter again, and a lot more punching. And Scott gets a really heroic, "I don't have to win. We just both have to lose." And he uses more particles to blow up the energy core again. And Kang is running for the wormhole, and Hope shoots him. And they knock him back into the exploding energy core, and he screams and he disappears. And then other stuff happens, and the wormhole closes. And then Scott and Hope say "I love you" to each other, which I don't know if that's the first time that that's happened. This is when, Hope does very, very little, and this is one of the things that she does.
Well, I want to back up a little bit to the fist fight.
Okay,
because
fist fight. Yeah.
The drama of that would make sense if Scott had any history with Kang. Like,
true.
We've
it has not really been about the two of them at all.
Yeah, like we've had 4 movies of these two, and now it's finally going to get down to just mano y mano, and they're absolutely going to go toe to toe, and there's the superpowers are no longer part of it. It's just whose heart is bigger and who has the courage to win the day. And
and he doesn't, this isn't even like the only reason why it's him. The only reason why he is the lead character of what is essentially an ensemble movie is just because he is.
Yeah.
It's just because he's the one whose name you remember, and he was in the Avengers. But like, it's only Scott because he has the name. And so therefore it is Scott and Kang. Whereas like story-wise, it should be Janet versus Kang. They're the ones who have a relationship. Scott is just a dude.
When it's Janet and Kang have no conversation that would have illuminated anything else we could have potentially known about the history of how we got to this point, what he's actually on about. Did she do something we should actually know about that didn't sound completely innocent and fine? I was expecting, again, I kept expecting stuff to happen with the Janet character, because it's Michelle Pfeiffer you've gotten for a movie.
Yeah.
They've set her up to have all of these dark secrets she doesn't want to talk about. And then she just basically stands there and goes, "Oh, poo, I don't like you."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Haha, I'm a villain, twirl, twirl, twirl." And that's it. That's all you get out of that sequence. Surely something got left on the editing room floor. I can't imagine a world in which they didn't use that time to do something else. But in this film, nothing else happens. It's a complete lack of understanding of how characters are interesting to audiences.
And it is just a big dumb fist fight.
Yep.
And Scott and Hope are trapped forever, except that they're not, because then Cassie just kind of like taps on more stuff, and the wormhole comes back, and they go home.
I was so baffled by that whole sequence of events in the film when it occurred. I was like, I thought they were going to leave Scott and Hope there and be like, we're going to basically put them in freeze
Yeah.
unless because their contracts are up, and maybe we'll save them. And but Cassie's going to be our new person or whatever, and we're going to suggest that they're going to go start a new civilization and whatever.
Well, this is actually a thing. This is the thing that Jeff Loveness said that I think is correct in that interview. He talked about it. They've already done that story of Scott being trapped in the quantum realm. That was the last movie. That was where that ended.
Sure.
And so knowing that for the next Avengers movie, whenever they want, Cassie's just going to open something and he's going to come back anyway. They said, screw it. No, let's take him home.
I mean, I get that, but I also don't know why then they ever bothered to use the device of there's a ticking clock on the
wormhole. Yeah. No, it's absolutely, yes, that is absolutely false. False drama. I got to run through this wormhole, and then the wormhole closes, and then, oh, it's fine. Cassie can just open it up again.
Yeah, it's like Cassie didn't build a wormhole opener. Cassie built a telescope.
Yeah.
That's the kind of laziness of this film, and it was like the complete capper on this Sunday of nonsense that they put together.
Well, it's like as soon as Kang is off screen, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's not really anything else here. So here's Scott, right back in exactly the same place, feeling more or less the same as he always has. He loves his family loves him. They're all very happy together, and they have no real problems or conflicts. And so that was just kind of like a big runaround that ends him up back in the same place. And then there's kind of a sad Baskin-Robbins callback to a character that I don't know why him making a bad cake is a comedy moment, but it is. So there's a comedy moment about that. But the one thing that's interesting is Scott asking himself, did I do the right thing? Was killing Kang actually the right thing? Or because Kang at one point said that he was actually the one who was going to stop all of the other Kangs from destroying everything. And so he's sort of wondering, is everybody going to die because of what I did? So then there's a couple of post-credit scenes. One of them is a big arena with Jonathan Majors playing several other scary Kangs, an Egypt Kang and a cyber Kang and a scary whispering Kang. And they've called together all the Kangs, and they're all in this enormous arena, and it's all Jonathan Majors. And so therefore, no matter what he does in real life, we will see how that plays out. And then the second post credits is just an ad for Loki season 2, which I appreciate it because I'm looking forward to Loki season 2. And unfortunately, they have, because of the Jonathan Majors thing, they have postponed it. I believe that Loki season 2 was supposed to come out in June, so we would have been they release Quantumania on streaming on Disney Plus, and so then we all watch it on Disney Plus, and then that's the ad for the show coming next month. But they have now delayed it until October because they want to get it out of the way of Jonathan Majors' trial, however that works out.
Good God.
Yeah. I got a couple more pieces of business.
Yeah, please.
It'll be fun to do. We'll talk toys. So Hasbro has a line of Marvel Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good quality action figures, I think. Good sculpts and everything. But they made a Build-A-Figure. So this is, again, a Build-A-Figure set where you have to buy 7 different action figures in order to get all of the pieces to make the 8th action figure, which I consider to be incredibly abusive, especially for this set, because it's a big Cassie figure, which is actually, it's kind of fun and it looks great. Unfortunately, there aren't 7 other characters that are worth making toys of, and they decided not to pick up on anybody from the movie. So the set is Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Kang. And those are the only figures from the movie. And then you have to buy Future Ant-Man and Crossfire and Egghead and Ultron, who are not in the movie, and I don't even know who a couple of those even are.
So I'm well informed on this topic. As I mentioned early in this podcast, I collect.
Did you get all these
stuff? I looked at them, and I think I put them in my basket, or I did buy them. I have since canceled them or removed them from my basket. They're not. They weren't different enough from what had come out previously.
Right.
Scott he's in the same suit, which is always the nightmare of these. When they're making action figures is. You've got to change it every movie, and if there was differences, they weren't large enough for me to know or tell what they were.
So we've already got an Ant-Man, we've already got a Wasp,
Yeah, so it's like I really want Cassie, but I'm not buying what would
Yeah.
basically be $200 in action figures to get the Cassie.
Yeah, that's why I think it's abusive. This build a figure thing. It's a scam and I don't like it.
Yeah, and the Guardians of the Galaxy did the same thing if you wanted Cosmo and
Yeah.
and whatnot. The
And
other thing was
the Eternals, which I just talked about, was another build a figure where if you wanted Gilgamesh, you had to get all the others.
I bet you can do that real cheap now though. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, you can pick that up for nothing at all. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that they had zero confidence, that they put Crossfire, who I don't know who Crossfire is at all and have no interest in knowing, but they didn't have any confidence in Gentora. That even for this like abusive, we're going to make people buy this toy
Mm-hmm.
in order to get another toy. Like even at that point, they had no confidence in any of these secondary characters.
It's really interesting because I don't understand the thinking.
Yeah.
If I am in the mood to buy stuff from a movie that I am looking forward to,
Yeah.
I want Flashlight Head.
I know Flashlight Head guy is the one who you would think.
Yeah. I want Cheedy in his triangle on his forehead. I want Blob Guy with him as an accessory. I don't really get what the thinking is when Marvel Legends does this, and I don't want to turn this into a completely irrelevant podcast, but it is abusive. It's super strange, and good luck finding on eBay all the pieces of Cassie that you're looking for. I just essentially in this phase in my collecting world just choose not to do the thing instead. Marvel Legends, if you're listening. So
also they didn't make MODOK, which seems like it would be obvious. If you want a MODOK, you got to go to Funko Pop. And even Funko Pop, they didn't make the Darren version. They made like the more comics version with the gold mask on.
In MODOK, they make MODOK toys fairly regularly because people are like, what a weird thing to have on my shelf. Yes, I'll buy a MODOK.
But they would rather make an Egghead figure than a MODOK figure. They really didn't have any confidence in this movie at all.
No. It really set off a lot of alarm bells with me as a fan kind of getting to the end of this movie. And so I thought a bit about like, what are the things they could have done that, aside from it all boiled down to just being a completely different movie. I don't know, frankly, what the hell's going on at Marvel these days. I don't not know like, oh, I need to create a YouTube channel where I point out all their flaws. But
I have good news.
What's that?
I have good news for you, which is, I always talk about on the podcast, I say, these are pivotal moments in superhero movie history. Often that's a joke. This time it does actually seem kind of pivotal. They are looking at this movie, and what was it, like 3 days later, Iger had an earnings call where he said, like, yeah, we're going to change some stuff. And in April, Marvel started replacing their writers on these movies. So there are new writers on Blade, on Fantastic Four, and Thunderbolts, and they all got replaced within a month. So they may have gotten the message that, the script actually does matter, and you can't just skate by on big, swirly sky holes. That process was interrupted because of the writer's strike in May. So we're going to see what happens. I'm very curious to see if Loveness remains as the writer for Kang Dynasty. I suspect that he will not be the only writer credited on Kang Dynasty, but we got to wait for the writer strike to be over to see what happens when everybody's back at work.
I would say it's a pivotal moment for me as a fan. It was the first time I have watched in 20 something movies a Marvel thing that, aside from Moon Knight, and then I did watch it all the way to the end.
Moon Knight was my Achilles heel with the TV shows as well. I stopped.
Unbelievable, that thing. It had these weird spikes of this is great, and then it would go right back to where you were.
Yeah.
But this one all the way through was just like I don't understand what happened. So I'm glad to hear they're replacing writers and executives and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I hate to be like I hope people got fired kind of guy. I'm not doing that. But I'm not unhappy to hear that that they're trying to change things up. I think it's a good idea at this point. Ryan Steens, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad I had such a rich opportunity to vent about the thing I did not like.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if they want to know you and your work better?
I am at signal-watch.com, which is a blog as well as the podcast. So you can read my ramblings and listen to episodes where I work with folks such as Danny and many others to kind of just cover various aspects of cinema. And you can find me on social media at melbotis.com, MELBOTIS.
That's great. For more comedy about the history of superhero movies, you can go to the blog at superheroeseveryday.com. If you like the show, please leave a review, or you could reach me on Twitter, Facebook, or on the blog. Almost nobody does. Honestly, it would be great to hear from you. And please tell the people in your life about the show. And if you think that I am finished with this podcast, you've got another thing coming, and here it is. Next week, finally all this surf music pays off. Becca Petunia of the Daily Fantastic joins me to talk about the 2007 Surfin' Spectacular, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. And there is no plot point, however interesting it might be, which is going to keep them away from the most boring wedding ever filmed.
This movie does have 4 people in it, and I liked that. I'm a big fan of it when there's 4 people in a movie.
Well, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were absolutely fascinated by 4 things that they knew nothing about: fire, magnetism, blindness, and women. Those were the 4 great mysteries of life that they just can't get their heads around, and they're going to keep writing comics about those things until they figure it out.
Cosmic Marvel is kind of like if Calvin Ball had the stakes of religion.
Did you not get that 27% on Rotten Tomatoes means that we're not that into you? All right, get excited for that and come back next week for the Superheroes Everyday podcast. Thanks for listening. Love you. Bye.
Kang! We had a deal! You took my daughter!
Holy shit. That's big.